Okay, brilliant. I am live. Um, if there's anyone here, give me a hello. If there isn't, that's fine. I will sit here and talk to myself. Oh, I can see there's three people. That's all right. Comes in, hello. It's lovely to see people that I know. That really helps to make me feel a little bit happier. This is the first time that I've actually been nervous before going for a live. Hi, Dawn. Oh, that's nice. I've got some people. Hello, friends. Oh, that's nice. So I'll just give it a minute or so for people to jump in for those that want to join us. Because Jodie just did a fabulous live about reactive dogs. And did her dogs do well? It's always nerve-wracking when you're doing live dog training. But agility, heel work to music, they're great ways to help our reactive dogs, aren't they? So I'm here to talk about a difficult topic, I guess. I am, as some of you may know, I am a registered clinical animal behaviourist, but I'm not here to talk to you with my clinical behaviourist hat on. I'm here to talk to you and open a conversation that I feel needs to be had within the dog training industry and community, which is about mental health. So I am sitting here talking to you not as a behaviorist and dog trainer or assistance dog handler or any of those things. I'm here to talk to you about myself as a woman who lives with a mental illness. And I'm able to maintain a relatively decent quality of mental health. I have a fantastic support network and I'm able to run my business despite living with a mental illness. And the main thing I find is there's such a high stigma around mental health, mental illnesses in particular. And when you have one similar to me that is highly stigmatized, it can make you unwary. And I was diagnosed with my illness, which is dissociative identity disorder, previously known as multiple personality disorder. Anyone that's seen the movie Split, yeah, that's what I have. It's one of the two main disorders that people make horror movies out of. They blast on the media, they make it very, very dangerous. And it's not like that at all. Anyone that knows me, whether you know me via work or in general, will know that I'm not a dangerous person at all. So that's just a bunch of rubbish. But I feel that when I first came out with this, because it was a recent diagnosis, well, 2 years old, I felt ashamed of letting my colleagues know that I was living with this disorder. Like, I've been diagnosed with depression and PTSD for years. The squeaking you hear is my little Spocky. He's on crate rest. He can hear me talking and the camera's up, so it's all right, sweetie. Settle down. So he's just in his pen at the minute. But I felt ashamed of letting people know, to tell people that I was living with a disorder, that I had something that was highly stigmatized. And when I first came out, I was wary. I had people telling me that I shouldn't be promoting mental health, that I shouldn't be as open as I am with this disorder. I shouldn't create a YouTube channel and let people meet the other personalities, essentially. I've had dog trainers that I've worked really closely with essentially stop working with me, have nothing to do with me, haven't spoken to me since my diagnosis, because they were worried about what the effect that my mental health diagnosis would have on their business. And I know I'm not the only one that deals with things like this, but I'm also relatively thick-skinned. And it was like, you know what? I have got my college course, so I did my BTEC National Diploma, led me to my degree in zoology, led me to my postgraduate diploma, led me to my master's degree. And I achieved all of that, all of my membership organisations. I passed all of those assessments with this disorder. I just didn't know that I had it. So it took a while for me to kind of build up the confidence of realising that, living with a mental illness doesn't take away anything that I have achieved. And it doesn't for anyone else either. And you can have a mental illness and have really good mental health. And I do. Like, my mental health is pretty decent. I've got some really good support strategies in place. I have a fantastic friends around me. I have regular blanket days. I'm also currently to help keep me a little bit calmer. I make things out of clay. So these are some wolves. There you go. That are going to become um, templates for candles. So I'm going to make some, just because it keeps my hands busy. That's like my art therapy, um, which I'll discuss in a little bit. So I just wanted to kind of open up to let people know that you're not alone, and you don't have to have a mental illness to have bad mental health. And if you have bad mental health, but you don't live with an illness, doesn't make it any less valid. Like, your experience, your emotions are always valid. And I feel that with dog trainers in particular, we tend to have from what I see, people that have a higher rate of mental health, that struggle with their mental health, because we're such compassionate people. We want to help people. We go the extra mile. We burn out very, very quickly. We suffer with compassion fatigue a lot. And I think that's why we go for animals. That's why we choose these careers, because we tend to struggle around people. Some have had lots of trauma things around people. Oh gosh, don't tell me I'm awesome. It makes me go, ugh. I'm not very good with compliments. But I've done some polls just to kind of get an idea of what everyone's like, which I've never done before in a Facebook Live. So let's see if I can do it. So there's a quick poll here. And I'm just curious for everyone listening. Hello, Lindsay. Hi, Michelle and Jessie. Oh, both Michelles. So I have a question here that I'd just like to ask, which is, how many people here suffer with your mental health? So I've activated a poll. That should come up. And I'm doing this purely because I know that there's a lot of us out there. We hide, we shy away. We tend not to like people knowing, because people underestimate you when they think you've got a mental illness or they've got poor mental health. And I want to try and break down those barriers and open these conversations. I want people to be aware that if you know someone that has a mental illness or if they have poor mental health, they can still do their job. Like, you're not any less of a person. Sometimes we need a little bit of extra support. We might need some extra time. We might need a little bit of a break here and there, but we can still do it. Like, don't write us off completely. Oh, that's really interesting. So no one has put rarely. 24% of people always have suffered with their mental health, 30% often, 39% sometimes, and 4% rarely, someone did. And yeah, so I'm hoping that shows everyone that you're not alone. We all have mental health, we all struggle with it. So what are the ways that we can help each other with it? Well, first of all, it's acknowledging that, we're not doing too well. And these can be little things, like noticing that you don't really want to get out of bed in the morning, or you don't really want to get dressed today, or have a shower. And I think for the past year, a lot of us with this lockdown have realized what it's like to have poor mental health. I've seen some people that live with anxiety and depression and things. They've done really, really well throughout lockdown, because that's how they live. That's normal to them. Whereas a lot of the extroverts are really struggling and finding for the first time what it's like to actually live in this, with this darkness around them, with the stigma around them, and go, actually, I'm not doing the things that I used to. I'm not finding enjoyment in this anymore. I don't feel as motivated. And they're really difficult to deal with. So the first thing I want to talk to everyone about is something that I used to struggle with greatly, especially when I first started out. So my first 5 years or so of dog training, and that was compassion fatigue. I care too much, and I still do. Like, I care for my clients, I care for trainers. I like to help people. I've always found enjoyment in helping people. It's why I have a mentorship group, so I can help other trainers and behaviorists be more confident about themselves, and I can share my knowledge and I can oversee what they're doing to give them that confidence boost. And also to make sure that they're reinforcing their boundaries. And that's the main thing, that when you've got compassion fatigue, or if you do care too much, is making sure that we have those boundaries in place with our clients and with ourselves. Has anyone had any problems with compassion fatigue where you're caring too much and you just reach this emotional level where you struggle to cope anymore? You're like, I can't take on another client. I can't have another client call me in tears. I can't deal with another consult where I'm helping these clients make these terrible decisions where they're crying because they might have to rehome their dog, or they feel the dog hates them, or sometimes we've got like the PTS cases, which are never nice for anyone, especially vets. And that's vets and vet nurses, vet receptionists, the whole veterinary team. They all care. It's difficult, and with these clients, we end up often with them messaging us sometimes on our private numbers because they're the only ones on Messenger at different times of the night. Sometimes we'll get phone calls in the night because the dog has just bitten someone or scratched something. Sometimes we'll have like where there's a child involved, and they come to you and they're like, I need you to help me. And you're booked up. You have like a whole week booked up where you've already spread yourself pretty thin. Then you get this emergency one come through, and you're like, I need to help these people. There's no one else that can help these people. So you put yourself aside so you can help them. And it's not healthy for us. And we really need to start having things in place and boundaries and trying to see where our responsibility lies for each of us. If you want to make sure that you've always got time to help those clients, then make sure you have that time booked in and you have time elsewhere to look after something else. Doing things like making sure that your phone is on silent, for example, after say 6 o'clock and before 9 o'clock. So any notifications that do come through, they're not bugging you all the time. I have a lot of chats and things on mute because I get very overwhelmed very quickly when I pick up my phone and I see the list of messages and emails that come through. So making sure that your clients are aware that yes, you want to be available for them and to help them, but it's not your responsibility to fix their dog. You are not the therapist, you are not a coach. You are there to help them with their dog. So you can support them from that regard, but you're not on call. Our clients don't pay us to be their on-call therapist, to be on call 24 hours a day to help them with their dog. We have plans. They have to take some of that responsibility on themselves. And we have to have things in place to make sure that they're culpable for that. Now, I don't mind going the extra mile for some of my clients, and I do for a lot of them, but it's the ones that I know are putting in the effort. The ones who are doing regular check-ins, the regular videos, they're putting in the work, I'm seeing the difference. Because some will put a lot of extra effort on you, and it's really difficult to deal with that. So it's also having to think about, okay, with me and my business and how I want to set it, what are my boundaries? Am I going to work weekends? Am I going to work evenings? And you will get the clients that will push and go, well, I work and these are my hours, so can you work evenings and weekends? And the answer to that for me personally is no. I work too, and I value my evenings and my weekends. One, because I have a son that I look after. Two, I have a physical disability. So I need the time to recover, to rest, recuperate. If I don't have that time, I'm no good to anyone. I'm no good to myself. I'm no good to my son. I'm certainly no good to my clients. So it's no, I don't work weekends. And it also helps, from my experience, that if you are stricter with people about your time, they respect it more. And they're usually better quality clients that are going to listen to you because they've already respected you. They're not pushing that boundary. And it's a nice way to tell the kinds of people that you're dealing with is if they ask for something and you say no, and you don't have to give them a reason. You just say, sorry, those appointments aren't available. Here's what you have. If they try and push that boundary, that gives you a little bit of an idea as to the kinds of people that you might be dealing with and whether you actually want to take those people on as your clients. And you can fire clients if you want to. If people are pushing your boundaries too much and they become triggering for you or they become emotionally exhausting for you, and you're doing so much extra work, you can say, you know what, we're not a good fit. I'm giving so much of this stuff to you and you're not putting in the effort. And I have other clients that I need to deal with. I have a life of my own that I need to do. It is okay to say no. It's okay to say, look, I can't help you anymore, but this person can, and refer them on to somewhere else. If you need to, if you've got a very difficult client, sometimes just refund them and just say, I can't help you. But it's really difficult to say no, isn't it? Because people come to you, they come for themselves. Hello, Rachel. They come to you for help and you want to help them, but there are some people that you're not going to mesh with. We're not going to be able to meet eye to eye on a matter. And if they keep pushing and pushing, it's okay to say no. He's like, you're a professional. If you say, I don't want to work with you, that is absolutely fine. You don't have to give them a reason. You can just say this. And I didn't really know that until, gosh, a few years ago, when one of my counselors was just like, you don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't owe your clients a reason. Like if I call the doctor and, I said, can you do this time of the evening? And they say, no, there's no appointments left there. Or actually, you're better off with this person. You're like, oh, okay. They don't owe you an explanation. I don't ask for one. So we need to realize that, in dog training, that we are professionals in our own right. Yes, it was a hobby for a lot of people to begin with, and it's a hobby for many people still. And even if you do this job as a hobby and it's not your career, you still have an entitlement to a life and to say no and to enforce that boundary, because people will take as much as you get. And when the compassion fatigue hits because we're caring too much and they just keep taking, we're no good to anyone at all. And then that's going to lead to our burnout. And burnout's something that I used to suffer with a lot. I mean, to the point where I physically broke myself. I was working 70 hours a week doing a master's, was pregnant with a baby. A couple of years after that, my physical health just plummeted. And I couldn't function anymore because I would physically pass out. And that's when my physical chronic health started to kick in. And it was all stress related. Emotional blackmail, absolutely. When you get the ones where you're the last hope, or if I can't see you, I'm going to have to euthanize the dog. That's the one that I hate. And I'm like, that's your responsibility, not mine. And it's horrible and I feel terrible. But I'm like, if you're going to use that kind of blackmail with me, then I know that chances are you're not looking for the dog's welfare. Like that's not something that you're looking for, which means that they're not a client that I'm going to take on. So to help us prevent things like burnout, which is really high in our industry, some people can do this job for a few years and then they're like, you know what, I can't take this anymore. I can't take on any more people's problems. I can't deal with the amount of emails I have to go through and the phone call and people trying to get free advice from me all the time. So this is where, again, boundaries, put things in place to help you. The people aspect is why I decided not to pursue my dream to train dogs professionally. It's difficult. You've got to like people and you've got to kind of understand how to handle people. And if you know you're not very good at handling people and dealing with that, outsource to someone that can. So if you know that you're not very good at affecting those boundaries when it comes to appointments or money, and you're prone to giving people discounts if they buy different packages, or if they're struggling and they say, oh, we're a little bit broke, or we're on benefits, or we're on this, or whatever it is that they give you, it's okay to offer payment plans and to discount when you feel like, but don't feel like you have to just because someone has mentioned something to you. So I outsource now. Thankfully, I'm in a position where I'm able to. But for those of you that can't afford to outsource, a little tip that I used to do is I would email. So I would never answer my phone. I still don't. Anyone who answers my phone, my voicemail will say, I'm in a consult right now, or I can't get to the phone. Please send me a text message or an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So I don't speak to anyone on the phone at all. First of all, because I have lots of anxiety around answering the phone. And I don't want to give away free advice to people, because once I start talking, I just can't stop. So I don't answer the phone to people. They have to go through my office. When they go through my office, I do offer free chats to people occasionally. That's something that I will offer if they're a little bit unsure what to do. I'll go, okay, let's just grab you for a few minutes and I will stick to that 20 minutes. But before I had my office, I would do the emails myself, but I would sign it under a different name. So I would have the same email or a different email, and I would write it as though I was an admin person in my office. I would sign with a different name because the person reading the email doesn't know that this email isn't outsourced. And it made my stress levels so much easier because I had a scapegoat that was still myself. But for your mental health, doing something like that can really, really help you if you can't afford to actually outsource. And outsourcing just saves you so much time and effort because they can book in the clients for you. So all you have to do is just show up at the consultations and you've got everything all booked in for you. But when there's problems with money, if you had a couple of bad mental health days and you didn't answer your emails, You can then just reply to someone and say, I'm really sorry there was a problem with the office, or yeah, I'll make sure the office sends these things out to you. And you've got that thing there to blame to help you. And I found that really useful. So when I was in a consult, they're like, oh, someone was supposed to send me this thing. And in my head, I'm going, oh, I completely forgot to send them that handout. I can then go, no problem, I'll make sure the office resends it in case it got stuck in junk mail or something like that. And it allowed me to make sure that I enforced my boundaries in a more professional manner, because people were dealing with what they perceived as my office rather than me, because that way when they meet me, I'm friendlier, I'm nicer, I'm not as formal, I'm not as straight to the point, so I can sit there, I can relax, I can ease my clients into the consultation. Because with our jobs, we have an hour to convince people that we are nice, we are trustworthy, we know what we're talking about. And I found that if I had not so nice email conversations with people and we were back and forwards a little bit, I'd have some preconceived ideas about what these people were like. And sometimes you would go into the consultation with a bias, and your client would do the same. Whereas this way, the first time they meet me in the state where I'm ready to talk to them. I'm there, sat there with my behaviourist hat on, I'm ready, I can build up the rapport rather than having this backwards and forwards, sort of disorganised, I'm not sure about things, how much packages do you want, point of view. Just going to check in the chat. I'm great, there's some people who think it's a good idea. So they find the potential clients suck me into these huge, long, drawn-out chats trying to get free advice. Yeah, absolutely. And they'll keep you on the phone for an hour, half an hour, and you're like, that's your time, and your time is valuable. Like, your knowledge is valuable. And I personally don't care if you have a degree, a master's degree, if you've been in the industry 5 years, if you're a dog walker, a daycare owner. Your experience is valid. There'll be something you can always bring to the table. And that's worth paying for. It's absolutely worth paying for. So make sure that you don't undervalue yourself by offering free time. Using the similar phrases like, I'd really love to help you, I'd love to answer that, but to make sure I give you the right kind of advice, I really need to do a consultation so we can take down the history, or I really need to see this dog's behaviour to give you a more clearer information or advice about how to do this. So making sure that you write them down if you need to. When I first started to do this, I would have a pad of paper and I would have essentially just phrases and sentences that I could say to people. So when they asked me something and I knew they were trying to get that free advice, this is something I can say, and it was written there for me. So I didn't have to think on the spot. It was here's the phrase, keep repeating to myself until I just stopped answering the phone completely, which has just saved me now. The only time I'll answer the phone is if I know you. I will happily speak to anyone, but I have to know you're calling, so everyone gets booked in through the office. Because a lot of our clients, they don't understand how busy they are. They don't understand how exhausting our work is. And if you think about the work that we do, is we are spending day after day dealing with other people's problems. Often they're highly emotional problems. There are times where we will feel helpless because we know we can help the animal. And if we just took the animal off them for a couple of weeks, a couple of days, sometimes a couple of hours, we could probably do a lot, but we can't. And sometimes we have to sit there and watch this animal suffer because of, a lot of the time, human ego. They don't want to come onto our things, or they're not listening to our advice, they're not following through our advice. And we're like, I can really help you, but I feel helpless. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter how qualified you are, how experienced you are always going to have clients where you're like, I'm helpless to help you right now because you're not listening to my advice. You're waiting for me to tell you something that you want to hear, and you're like, I can't help you. And that hurts. That is a huge emotional toll. And anyone that has any kind of difficult past, those kinds of emotions that we go through of dealing with that, it's difficult. And if you are a counsellor or in any of the kind of therapy professions, you would be under supervision, or at least you'd be offered supervision every month based on the hours that you do. We don't get that kind of support as dog trainers. We have to pay for it privately, if at all. Some of us will try and go through the NHS, and that's a whole different ball game. But it would be nicer to have more organisations that had that mental health support and that supervision. And the supervision that you get from counselors or in counseling is all counselors are in counseling. They have a counselor that they that they see that's got to like the qualifications to allow them to be supervisors, and they just rant about the cases that they've had and any of the emotional stuff that's happening in their daily lives, and it just gives you that independent third party to just kind of keep you on form. And I've been having supervision from my own counsellor for about 3 years, and it's paid for through my business. It's part of my well-being. It's a professional service that I feel everyone should have. Some organisations do offer it. I think, is it In Two Dogs have a mental health and well-being thing? I know the APBC does. Um, because it's nice to have that independent thing that we can talk to about our clients. And you'll find counsellors really, really useful. So even if you don't go because of your own mental health, go for the support and learning some counselling skills. So when you've got a difficult client or someone that you're like, I just can't get through to these people, they'll be able to offer you loads of their little tips and tricks of, well, have you tried doing this? Or have a go at doing this. And because they start to get to know you, they'll see the subtle changes in your behaviour throughout each month. And they're like, when was the last time you took a bath? Or did you do something for yourself? And they're like, oh, actually, you know what? I haven't really been looking after myself as much as I normally do. Thanks for pointing that out to me. And having either someone independent to do that is really important. I know there's some people that are wanting to set up things like this, so watch this space, I get. In the veterinary profession, they have vet life, yeah. And mental health is just so important. It's so important because if you don't look after your mental health, your physical health will get worse. And that's something that none of us particularly want to deal with. Another thing that I highly recommend for anyone that feels like they're suffering compassion fatigue and burnout is try and find something that is fun for you that doesn't involve dogs. Find something away from dogs. Like, I love dogs, obviously, we all love dogs. The majority of us live with dogs. And that means that 24 hours a day, our life is involved around dogs. And how many of us find that there's times where we are so exhausted physically and mentally at the end of the day that we're not training our own dogs. We're not doing the things that we want. You know, we get into this industry because we love dogs, we want to train our own dogs, and then we're too tired to. And we look at our dogs and go, I know I should really go and take you to do this trick training or take you and do this, but I'm exhausted right now. And you spend so much time training other people's dogs. You don't put the effort into your own. And even when you do, you're like, oh. If you're like me, I have so many part-trained behaviors in my dogs because I never get the time to follow them through and proof them to completion. So I have a lot of stuff, like all the trick stuff. The assistant stuff, obviously I do follow through because that's a separate side of things. But I've got so many just like part-trained things. There's something in life that doesn't involve dogs. I know, right? It's amazing. Find something. One of the things that I do, as I mentioned earlier, is I do this. This is my art therapy, and art therapy is fantastic. I'm sat here just making fur, basically. As it's so important to have something that you can just focus on. Art is a really good way, and I'm rubbish at drawing, like terrible at drawing. There's some people here that I know are fantastic artists, and my stuff's relatively decent now, but it wasn't when I started. And I started because I needed something. I was in a very dark place, and I needed something to do to make me feel like I'd done something that day that was worthwhile or that made a difference. So I started with polymer clay. It's a great product if any of you just want to mess around with it, because it's something that I'd never done before, like ever. And I was like, okay, well, I can only get better. That was the bar for me, is can I make something, and can I make it the next thing slightly better than this thing? And I was trying to avoid looking at other people's things and going, oh my God, they're so much better than me. Try step away from that and go, you know what? This is better than that one. Brilliant. Let's see if I can learn how to do like this little bit of a technique. oh, that's better than that was. And just seeing your art change and seeing me be able to create these things just helps ease my mind. And I would often do like dog things because it's going to come around dog, isn't it? Well, someone's put that they do diamond art. Art's definitely helped Dawn. Dawn does some fantastic, what's it called? It's like pyro something. She burns pictures into wood. It's amazing. Some of her pictures are wonderful. So have a go at things like that. Have a look, just go to a craft store and go, you know what? I'm going to pick up something that I've never done before that I'm slightly interested in and just try it. Because you can't be bad at it because you've never tried it before. So you can only do something better, and you'll find that just spending like an hour a day or every couple of days just doing something that doesn't involve dogs, or pick up a fantasy books, biography, that's it. And that's the wood burning thing. Pick up a fantasy book or a fiction book, something where you can read but it's not dog related. You know, how many of us have dog textbooks at the side of our bed or on the bookshelves or next to us, because when we want to sit down and read, we're reading some dog literature. Carrie does photography. Oh, photography is great for that mindfulness of just sitting somewhere and getting a really good picture. I have a couple of friends that really love just going out and doing pictures. I actually struggled years with the mental health, depression, OCD. Oh, that one's a really hard one. I feel for you there. Um, it's 43 and you're starting to understand it all. Yeah, people just don't understand how difficult it is when you have a mental illness. That, you know, I can have good mental health a lot of the time. My illness is always here. That never goes away, much to my frustration. Um, and with my with the DID is I get the wonderful thing of dissociative amnesia. So I'm not just forgetful. I'll have memory blanks. So there's like different parts of me, and I will forget entire conversations between different things. So as the behaviorist, I'll always remember stuff. Um, but as me, I forget things all the time. And it's really funny because someone will ask me if I've done something. And usually if you ask that question, you'll be like, oh no, I forgot to do this. And you'll suddenly remember. You ask me and I'll be like, I have no idea. I have to look for the evidence because I couldn't tell you if I'd done the thing or not. And a lot of times, which is why I have to have lots of other people around to help me in case that happens. And that gets worse the worse my mental health gets. So I'm very aware that I have to keep my general mental health up and stable. So the DID doesn't get to the point where I'm losing time and I'm losing days and I don't remember what's happened. Um, it'd be nice to see people's work. Michelle, ecotherapy, which is amazing. What's ecotherapy? Is that where you're out in nature doing things? I'm loving these ideas of what people are doing. Erica found out at 49 that she'd been living with ADHD her whole life. Yeah, anyone that has ADHD are going to be able to empathize, I think, the most with what it's like to have DID because of the disorganization, the scatterness, and the kind of seeing something and then kind of going, oh, I need to go and do this, and oh, while I'm here, I'll go and do this, and that kind of pattern of the thoughts, it's very, very similar from what I get from the people that I know that have ADHD and from obviously the TikToks and things like that. It is very, very similar. Just but when your kid parks comes to work, yeah. um, those of you that are in touch with their inner child, with DID you can have child parts as well. Thankfully mine aren't too young, but you can have moments where you do kind of get very childish and a bit kind of giddy, and that's fine in the right context. It's just making sure that you've got everything. So whatever mental illness that you happen to live with, that you're able to cope with that. And that's a question that I'd really like to ask, just to give everyone a bit of an idea as to the kind of people that we've got here. Does anyone here live with a mental illness that they know of? So it doesn't matter if you're not professionally diagnosed, because that's a difficult thing to go through. But I'm just curious if everyone has. And this can be like depression, anxiety, bipolar, PTSD, DID, schizophrenia, OCD. There's so many. Let's give that a little bit of a time. But it's nice to know that I'm not alone. Ecotherapy is out in nature, working, learning mindfulness. That sounds amazing. I need to have a look into that. Rachel's birth mother suffers severe bipolar, high functioning anxiety. Yet a lot of it isn't recognised, and we need to just start to see into that. Luckily, you didn't inherit the issues. It is highly inheritable, absolutely, Rachel. It's difficult growing up with people when they have mental illnesses, that because it wasn't really recognised. People were growing up and they were living with these problems on their own, and now we're starting to learn about it, but the stigma's still there. We're still hearing someone's got a mental illness and they're like, oh, best stay away from them. They might suddenly do something, and it's not like that. Um, you've probably been the owner that's no trainers. Um, yeah, you want to make sure that you're looking after yourself. Um, you've probably been the owner that has annoyed trainers, which really stresses you out because you don't want to seem like a bad. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that there are plenty of owners out there that need the free advice for whatever reasons, like financially, mentally, you're not able to actually get it, and that's why things like this are so important. I have a few behaviour chats on my YouTube channel. I try and do regular things. I do as much as I can for free to people to offer that kind of advice to everyone. Um, but it's stuff that the important distinction for me personally is that it's stuff that I do on my time. So, like with these conferences, I am happy to do free conferences about anything and things, but it has to be at a time that I can put in, and I have to know about it in advance. To suddenly have someone call me and then want an hour of my time for free there and then is too much. But if you say, I'm really struggling, I really could do with your help, then I can set up something and go, you know what, I will do a Facebook Live at this time. Jump along and join me. Anyone else that's struggling with this particular thing, jump on and we can have a quick chat about things and sort through. So it's making sure that you give people those sorts of times. So if you are a trainer and you do want to give free advice, or at least be accessible to people that don't necessarily are able to afford the fees that you have, think about doing, monthly Facebook Lives or something on YouTube. Just something where you can have bits of resources that are available to everyone that you can put out there that will help people understand and get through something. That way you're still feeling like you're helping people, and everyone's got somewhere else that they can go to do that things. And it's a nice little balance. Lots of people that have depression, anxiety. Someone else also has a personality disorder. Yay! A very good friend of mine has BPD. It's a borderline personality disorder. Mine's technically dissociative disorder rather than a personality disorder, but they're very, 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 very similar on that dissociative spectrum. PTSD, yep. Lots of abandonment issues, clinical depression and borderline. I feel sorry for my borderline buddies. Like, you guys have it tough, that emotional roller coaster that you're on. Like, was misdiagnosed with schizophrenia. Oh, that's harsh. A colleague of mine is involved in schizophrenia. Some people have tics, clinical depression, anxiety, epilepsy. Yeah, so I will show the results. There are 75% of us in the chat right now that live with a mental illness. That's actually made me quite happy in a very kind of weird way to know that, you're definitely not alone. Someone else has dissociative disorder of some sort, probably. CPTSD, yeah, the complex PTSD, that repetitive trauma. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so, not obsessed, but I'm very passionate about trauma in animals and mental health in animals. That's why I do a lot of stuff on, my next Facebook Live this time next week, I think I booked it in for, is on the brain and behaviour, and how the brain affects the behaviour around animals, how the brain affects our behaviour, because it's the same thing. And if we have a think about how different things affect us and our own mental health, it helps us to then empathise with our animals. And to go, you know what, I need a break. I need to start putting my boundaries and things in place. I need to start having different ways that I can deal with my compassion fatigue and my burnout and my imposter syndrome. We're all literally barking mad, yeah. And you've got to take it like that, and you've got to find the fun in a lot of it. and realize that it's not always a bad thing, and not to allow people to make you feel bad for living with a disorder. You shouldn't have people that kind of say, oh, well, you're no good at doing this because you live with that. And if anyone tries to tell you anything, saying that you can't do something because you live with a mental health, feel free to tag me in the post. Because I've worked my ass off to be the level that I am. I'm fortunate enough to be on committees for things. I do so much stuff, and I'm at a really good place in my career right now, and I live with one of the most stigmatized mental illnesses, but I can function, and it's very, very difficult for people to tell me that I can't, because I have the evidence to do it. Just ask my clients. Like, it's not a thing. So I get very, very passionate when people are being put down because they're having a bad mental health time. We all have bad mental health. It doesn't mean that you're not capable of doing something. That doesn't mean that you're bad at your job. It doesn't mean that you can't do something else. It just means that you need a little bit of extra support at times. Or you need to make sure that you've got a good support network that's able to recognize that you're falling a little bit, and that you need to reach out. Or you need them to reach in and say, come on, let's go for a walk. Let's go and get in nature. For them to come around and go, do you want me to help you do some tidying up in your house? Or if you're not looking after yourself because you're not making a sandwich. Just one of the biggest things what my therapist told me, whenever you're at that time where you're like, I'm too tired to make a sandwich right now. They're like, just eat the cheese. Like, if you're going to make a cheese and ham sandwich, just get the cheese, get the ham, just eat them. Just skip the bread. And I was like, what? It's like, just skip it. That's the important bit anyway. So little things like that can really help. We've got people are very honest with their clients. Yeah, I found that once I started to be more open about my mental and my physical health through my social media and stuff, I started to attract clients that also had these sorts of problems because they knew I wouldn't judge them. And I'm like, how many people have judged you for you to openly try and find people that have similar illnesses to you in order to feel like you're not going to be judged and to get that kind of connection? So don't worry about that you're going to lose clients or that you're going to look less professional, because you're going to attract the right people for you. You'll find your tribe, and they'll be like, this person understands me, which means that they're not going to set me a training plan where I've got to do 3 hours every day of this training thing, because they know what it's like to live with this illness and know that's not feasible. So they're going to break it down into a different way. And sometimes even asking our clients, if you send out questionnaires, just have an open-ended question on there somewhere about, is there anything else that you would like to tell me about yourself? Phrase it in a way where you show that you're open about mental health. Because sometimes it helps to know if our clients have anxiety, because then we can put things in place to help ease their anxiety, so they can have like a phone call beforehand, or you can give them an extra questionnaire, or you can start off the conversation in a lighter way to make it a bit easier for them to deal with you. If you've got things like PTSD, you can then be aware of anything that might trigger them. I was very open about her mental health. Yep. Finally met your brain twin. Fantastic. How do you get your support network? That took a long time. So I have a fantastic counselor. There's a psychologist that I can get in touch with every so often if I'm really struggling. But I have the best friends in the world. And Michelle, I also have your wonderful group. So Michelle has a Beyond the Blue mental health support for professionals Facebook group. And there's a couple of people in there that have done like the mental health first aid, and they're lovely people. And I highly recommend going in that group. It's lovely to see how nice everyone is, and that you're able to kind of jump in and talk about it. The Mind website is good for PTSD. Mind's brilliant. Mind has some fantastic resources, and I find personally, I think it's the scientist in me, that it helps to read up about the illnesses that I have, and to find about trauma and how things affect the brain, and to read books. One of my favourite books is The Body Keeps the Score, by a gentleman called Bessel van der Kolk, and he explains how trauma and PTSD basically resides within your body, and how if you tire really easily, if you have fatigue type problems, there are so many physical illnesses that are tied into childhood trauma, being suppressed and things in childhood, and there's different things that you can do to help break through that. So that's a really good book to read. Um, it can be helpful to be empathetic with your clients. Bipolar is very difficult to live with. Um, Suppose on Facebook that they were telling their therapist that the thing they really couldn't bring themselves to do was the dishes. Um, yeah, it was like just run the dishwasher twice if you need to. One thing with dishes, if you're really struggling, just get some paper plates and just skip the dishes completely. It's fine to do that kind of stuff if you need to. I wouldn't recommend anyone live like that consistently, but for a couple of weeks or so, if you're really struggling and you can't face washing up and you know that, just get some paper plates. Just eat off a paper plate for a couple of weeks and put it in the recycling. You're not doing anyone any harm by doing that, and you're saving yourself some effort. Because when you've had a long day and you're very burnt out and you're struggling with clients, thinking about having to clean up your whole house or wash those pots and do those impossible tasks, we all have that impossible task. For a lot of us, it's putting the washing actually away. People are struggling more at the minute because they're so busy. Their stress release is putting dogs into the car and heading to the beach that's not allowed. That's a big thing, isn't it? For so many of us, is that our stress release is taking our dogs to nice places to go for a run, and we can't do that. And that restriction, that helplessness, really isn't helping us. Everyone's a lot more stressed than normal. Have depression, suspect that they might be autistic as well. Yeah, there's so many people here. These comments are lovely. Yeah, being judged that you don't fit in a box, that you're not doing things that you're supposed to be doing. Thank you, Beth, and it is a very good book, isn't it? Best the devil you know, relearning about your conditions. It's so much less scary when you know what you're battling with. Absolutely. If you understand the conditions that you live with, then you know what's you and what's the illness. And for some people, I try and get them to name their illness. So if you've done something, or if you're angry about something, or if you live with a partner that has mental health issues and you don't, name their illness. And then when you're talking and you're venting to your friends, rather than saying your spouse, your partner, your husband, girlfriend, whatever it is, say, oh, they're doing this because it's really annoying me. Name the illness. Give it an entity in its own right and say, I hate this. This illness that turns my loved one into this being, give it a name. Because it's that you don't like. It's not the person. The person is sick. The person is suffering. Give it a name. And then you can both say, I really hate it when Dave leaves the cups on the side. Or I really hate it when Dave just doesn't talk to me for hours because they're just sulking in the side. And they can go, yeah, I really hate it when Dave prevents me from opening up to you and being able to talk to you and tell you how wonderful you are. When Dave stops me from doing something else. Helene, I run mood management courses using essential oils and coping strategies with health professionals. Non-judgmental groups are great. Yeah, some of the essential oils are brilliant. Helene, I know, is fabulous at those. I'm always in two minds about it, but some of them work wonderfully for people. And then imposter syndrome, that's the big one. And if it helps, I still have imposter syndrome. I don't feel like I should be the clinical behaviourist. I don't feel like I've got the knowledge to do it. I know I have because I see the certificates. I see the work I do with my clients. I can watch back videos and hear feedback from people and go, wow. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not me. So imposter syndrome will always be there. I feel it's slightly different for me because in theory, the main work part of me is an alter that is just purely like a work robot. Which is why I can recall things really, really well when I'm doing live stuff, because all that memory is stored in one part of me. And the imposter syndrome doesn't ever go away. I thought it would. I thought once I got my master's that it would go away, and it didn't. I thought once I got my full membership, it would go away. It didn't. And then it's like, okay, well, now I've got this. Is it going to go away? No, it hasn't. You just start to learn to work through it, and rather than kind of feeling like I'm going to get judged by people. It's like, okay, what am I really good at and what aren't I good at? And being aware of my strengths and weaknesses. So have a think about things. Have a look through the criteria of different organizations and what other people are doing and go, okay, what am I good at? And I think the biggest thing for dog trainers is there are so many disciplines within our industry, so many ways to help people, that we feel like we need to know it all. And if we don't know it all, and if we don't have an answer for everything, then we're an imposter and we shouldn't be doing the job. And that's just not true. We have niches, we have strengths, we have weaknesses. And I think it's about time that we really started to pull on what it is that you want to do, what you like to do, and focus on that. You know, if you want to be a trainer that does particular exercises or you want to focus on a particular sport, then don't worry about becoming a behaviorist or trying to get CAB things, because they're two completely different things. I see you too, Michelle. A lot of us are scared of failure, and it's trying to go that, oh, without failure we can't learn. So we're going to have to fail a little bit to try, but having people that have got your corner. Oh God, I'm reading your mind. Hey, you know. So let's try and have people. So focus it down. Figure out what it is that you want to do that makes you happy. What are you really good at? And don't worry about the labels. As humans, we like to label things and put things in boxes and say, well, I want to do this, so I have to do this. But in order to do this, I also have to make sure that I offer this, and this. And then you're like, well, I've got to do this because I don't want to refer to this person. Or what if I do this? It's like, let's talk to each other. Let's form more stronger communities with each other. You know, let's be able to say, this person's fantastic at doing this particular thing. This person's fantastic at doing this thing. Team up together, and then you can share that thing. If you've got two people that are fantastic at the same thing, brilliant, you can share experience together. Like, there are so many dogs out there. And for those of us in the force-free community, we are battling enough with the dog trainers that aren't on the force-free side of things, that we need to stop arguing amongst ourselves over the little things and just say, you know what, we're on the same side of the fence. Let's stick together and let's go, okay, I'm going to take this, you take this. And that's what I try and do with a lot of my mentors, is I always try and make sure I have like a little mentorship group in a community that you can join and talk in. And it's, for us, it's making sure that we work together and going, okay, if you want to do this, fantastic, let's support you in how you can do this and be the best, this version of you that you want to be. And I've had a few people in my mentorship group that wanted to be CAB. They've come and joined me, they've sat in a couple of my consultations, they've seen what I've done, and they've gone, no, I'd rather be in the field with the dogs doing a fun agility things or doing competitive agility. I don't actually want to be a behaviorist. And I'm like, fantastic, you've learned that. Other people are like, I want to be a behaviorist, but I want to do the rehab stuff. I don't really want to do the consultation part of things. I want to do the rehabilitation part of things. I'm like, fantastic, join my rehabilitation team. And then I can do the diagnosing and go, this dog has this, here you go, go fix it. This dog has this, there you go, go fix it. We need to work together a lot more and start focusing on what we can do rather than trying to spread ourselves so thin across the board and try and work in everything. Just go, you know what, let's focus on this. Let's try to make sure that we reduce the imposter syndrome the best that we can, because none of us are experts in everything. It's impossible. And even the experts among us, quite often they're experts in the sense that they know a lot of what they do, usually don't have the kind of confidence to actually shout about it. You know, we're so kind of sat here going, I'm so aware of what I don't know that they're too scared to be called experts. I hate being called an expert. Specialist is what I like. I like being a specialist. I specialize in aggression and trauma. They're the things that I really like. I can do the other things, but they're my niche. That's what I really enjoy doing. If you want to do separation anxiety, it's like, I'll do it if you want to see me particularly, but go to this person instead. So it's finding people that do this and find someone that can be a mentor. Mentorship, I think, is what's missing in a lot of dog training circles, is finding people that you connect with, that you can talk to, that can then help and guide you and support you in your career, because we are all stuck in these self-employed little boxes trying to do everything for our clients all at the same time, and we're all burning out, we're all feeling bad, we all feel like everyone else is better than us, and it's not true. Like, we're all valid, we're all doing our own thing, and if we shared more of our knowledge and shared our resources, we can help so many more people. Specialists, yeah. because it can be a cutthroat industry, and I get it. I understand that, this is a livelihood for a lot of people. Um, and for the best example I have of this is I used to run a daycare and training centre in Bolton, which was exactly 5.5 miles away from Wagga K9 College in Bury. For those of you that don't know Wagga, that is Jane Auden's training centre. We are literally 6 miles away from each other, running training classes, at least when I had my centre. And we ran side by side for about 5 years. And we never saw each other as competition. We enjoyed the fact that we could share clients. We could discuss things. We'd be like, has this person come to you yet? Yeah, I didn't take them, did you? Yeah, I've got them. Or someone comes to my classes, they get this from me. They go to Jane's classes, they got that from her. And we're good friends and have been friends for a long time, and we can refer to each other quite happily, knowing about each other's strengths and weaknesses. And that's within 6 miles of each other. We're dealing with the same clients, we're dealing with the same vets. It is okay to work within the same area as someone else and still be hugely successful. And it can be done. So we need to kind of help each other a lot more, because it's much better for our mental health, our mental well-being, and for the dogs. Like, the better we are with each other, the more that's going to filter through to our animals, the more that's going to filter through to our clients, the better we are going to be able to help everyone. And it just makes it a little bit easier. And I don't want to be sat here all preachy saying everyone should be friends with each other, because that's just not going to happen. That's unrealistic. People are people. We can't agree with everyone. But if you don't agree with what someone's saying, just disagree with what they're saying. Don't attack the person. There's a huge difference between what the person says and what the person's doing, as opposed to what they are like as an individual. So try not to attack the person in these situations. And if you are having conversation and discussions, try not to take things personally. Sometimes they're just discussing the particular method or the thing that you're doing. They don't want to necessarily attack you. And I think that we should open more of these conversations with each other, have more support groups available for dog trainers, so we can discuss and come together and just support each other a little bit more, because we all deal with the same problems. We all have the same kind of clients. We all see in very similar cases. We have very different views. And if we shared that knowledge and supported each other, we could do so much more within the industry. And everyone that wasn't using our mentality and our methods, they'll fade away, and we can just be here and lead by example. We don't have to fight anyone. We can just support each other and collaborate a little bit more. And I think my time is almost due. So I'm going to have to jump off and say bye. And I didn't even drink my cup of tea. Like, I've got a full cup of tea here that I had made already. I was so nervous that I didn't drink it. But thank you everyone for joining me. It's been lovely to see you all. And I hope I've helped just start the conversation. And that's the main thing I wanted to do today, is just open this conversation. These are things that need to be said. You can live with a mental illness and still be functional. You're no less of a person, you're no less valid just because you live with a mental illness. You can still have fantastic mental health. You can also have not so good mental health. You can also have poor mental health and still be good. You just need a little bit of extra support, and we can help you get back on track. So lots of, oh my god, the thank yous are coming through. This is where I'm just gonna go, yeah, but if anyone wants to know more about me, my community is Control the Meerkat. I have a mentorship program there as well if people want to come and join us, and we have video chats every week and just talk about clients and random things, to be honest. And if anyone has an interest in trauma, I'm hosting a trauma conference later in the year that has some fantastic speakers, so I will shove some links in the group for anyone that's interested in any of that. You can also add me as a friend on Facebook, and I'll quite happily talk to everyone. So thank you all for joining me. I will jump off before I run over, and whoever's next can jump on. So Control the Meerkat is the name of my community. Thank you, Carrie, for popping it in there. And if you go to conference.controlthemeerkat.com, you'll find the trauma conference that I'm hosting in March. Well, in July. The early bird ends in March. So I will stop being live now. I'm ready for the next one. So bye, everyone.